Hey guys, this is Crab Hunter, and welcome back to What of Tanks. Woo! Now, today we are going to have a look at the M6. Yes, the American Tier 6 heavy tank. Yeah, she is. She's one of two choices at Tier 6 to get to the T29. If you've gone via the M4 route, you can go via the Jumbo, or the M4A3E2 to be specific, to get to the T29, or more commonly, people will have gone down the T1 Heavy to get to the M6. Now, the M6 is pretty much a T1 Heavy at Tier 6. So, that's about it for this one, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and okay, you have me. It's not exactly like a T1 Heavy, but, you know, it's quite similar. Yeah, I mean, this thing is very similar. So, if you'll have played the T1 Heavy, you are more or less driving the same vehicle, only at Tier 6. And of course, once fully upgraded, this thing certainly has a respectable aura on the battlefield, but unfortunately I fear because of, in a sense of fame, she may be overshadowed by such vehicles as the KV-1S, the KV-2, also, don't forget, you've got now the VK3601H, which is, of course, a heavy tank, the ARL-44. There are loads of other Tier 6 heavy tanks out there that start to push back with regard in the sense of firepower, destructive capabilities, and most importantly, sheer damage for them. But you know, let's see how this let's see how this thing compares though in this review. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, hit points. Now, the M6 is very impressive because it has 870. That's very good for a Tier 8. Yeah, this is Tier 8, didn't know? No, a Tier 6 heavy tank. Certainly a very respectable amount of hit points. But let's have a little comparison to see how you fare against your counterparts. Right, so the ARL-44, as I remember it to be, has 820 with its fully upgraded turret. So this thing, once again, the French are lower with regards to hit points, which is not entirely surprising, but at the same time, it's French. Deutschland has the VK3601H now, which used to be a medium for those who are confused. Heavy tank now. And, oh geez, 950. Yes, Deutschland has certainly earned its place in the sense of hit points, and that's very, very decent amount of hit points for a Tier 6 tank. Good old Britannia, you know that most of the British heavy tanks from the Churchill onwards will have a very generous health pool, like the Tier 5 A tank destroyers. And the Churchill Mark 7 is no exception, having 860 hit points, which actually is... No, sorry, that's not... So again, 960. My apologies, I kind of got confused there for a second, because I don't own the vehicle. It shows you the stock values. It's one of those weird things. If you own the vehicle, it shows you its current values, but if you don't own it or you haven't got it, it shows you its stock values. I'm not entirely sure why, but there you go. So yeah, 960, counter what you would think. So the British is certainly on top on that one. You've already on that. Now, the Russians have a crap ton of vehicles at Tier 6. The KV-1S, as everyone knows, has 810. The KV-2, which obviously makes those guys the lowest, the KV-2 has 860 with a fully upgraded turret. And as I do not own the T150, but I think they have relatively the same amount of hit points. I think that one has 860 as well. 860, maybe 870. So these two tanks, whilst having a fair amount of hit points, they're not as many as you. They are certainly close. So the M6 with 870 hit points is certainly you are certainly gonna need them, because unfortunately, well, you're now going to be starting to bump into the Tier 8 battle tanks, the ISU 152, which can unfortunately one-shot you, if you're in the worst matchmaking, of course. You will also bump into more often the Tier 7 games, where tanks and the IS and stuff, which can do huge amount of damages to you. So 870 hit points is certainly an advantage which is useful to have on the field. Now, on to weight and speed. You are a heavy bugger, being 58.81 tons with only 2 modules attached, and you have a maximum tonnage limit of 61. This, in combination with your fairly impressive 960 horsepower, gives you 35 kilometers. Yeah, it's not a very good speed limit. I mean, like, once again, and I'm going to have to use this a lot, so bear with me. This tank, this is one of the similarities between this tank and the T1 Heavy, is that the acceleration of this thing is absolutely remarkable. So much acceleration and torque really does help this vehicle when it comes to brawler type situations, because that initial burst of acceleration and speed can catch your opponent unawares. Of course, the downside to this amazing speed is the fact that you get a very low top speed, which means that after you get, for example, get out of the cap and you're heading towards your objective, more tanks will eventually catch up to you and eventually overtake you, which could leave you out of the sticks if you're not really going in the right direction. So that can be quite a problem. Another disadvantage, of course, is your rather poor traverse speed of 25. Even with clutch braking as it is, it's still quite... it can be quite a difficult thing. So... the tactics I would suggest with this amount of maneuverability and speed would dictate that you'd have to probably be alongside teammates when you're pushing. Otherwise, enemy tanks can quite easily outflank you and get some shots into your rather weak armor, which we'll go on to in a second. But apart from that, like the T1 Heavy, the acceleration of this thing, especially when going up hills, is phenomenal. You know, it's brilliant for when you want to push up and capture a point. Now, onto armor. The M6 doesn't really improve much over the T1 Heavy. In fact, I'll just go to the tech tree just to prove the point. So, actually, before we do, let's show you the values. So, the values of the armor are 102 for the hull to the front, 44 to the sides, 41 to the rear. The turret is 102 on the front, 83 to the sides, and 83 to the rear. So, not much armor at all. And as you can tell, extra big target on the side. But let's go to the tech tree just to highlight just how poorly this thing is armored. So here are the armor values of the M6. You can see there, 102, 102. Here are the armor values of the T1 Heavy. Yes, that's right. Same armor values for the side and rear, and same armor values for the turret. Apart from the small improvement to the frontal hull, this vehicle has received no updates to its armor. I mean, at all. Completely at all. So, that... I mean, in my eye, that's quite a negative. I mean, it's difficult to say that you're a brawler tank when your armor is so shit. Yeah, but like I said, if the good news, I suppose, if there's any consultation, is that if you're used to this by driving the T1 Heavy, you'll be able to work around this and use what lessons and skills you've earned on the T1 on the M6. But how much armor do you really have? Well, let's go on to Tank Inspector to find out. So, here we are on Tank Inspector. Here's the M6, and here are the M6 armor values. And if we go on to the stats, you'll see that the 102mm of hull armor only covers a small section of the frontal hull armor. Excuse me. So, the interglacial shot, which normally is the weaker part of the armor, is, for once, much better armored than which is actually much better armored than this section of armor. However, unfortunately, most guns will often go through what little armor you have there, so it kind of doesn't really matter. And the 83mm of armor, which covers the sides, and in fact almost a small chunk of the front as well, as you can see here. It's pretty much the gun mantlet in this case, which has 100mm worth. The rest of the turret is absolute crap when it comes to armor. But unfortunately also, it's also quite crap for this section here as well. It's even worse with the 70mm there as well. So that's quite a poor section of armor. And because, unfortunately, there is little to no angling, most, if not all, shells will go through the front. In fact, most Tier 4 guns, most Tier 5 guns went through this section as well. So you'll have very difficult times being effective in this vehicle from the front. To make matters worse, if you try and angle your vehicle, the armor value of these two sections here actually goes down, which really sucks. This thing really can be a real pain in the ass if you're caught out in the open, because there is literally nothing you can do in the open to avoid getting shot and penetrated. Going on to the sides, biggest weakness of an M6 and biggest weakness of the T1 and the biggest weakness of the M6 as well is the side. Now, more importantly for this vehicle than it was the last, because why? KV2s. I can't tell you how happy I am if I'm in a KV2 and I see the side of an M6. I basically start to squeak and be all cheery because I could kill him with one shot. And in fact, I have killed M6s with one shot. Be exceptionally aware, guys, this section of armor will get you killed if you show it to a KV2 or anything with a derp gun. Basically, to the SU-152, ISU if he has the derp gun. Anything that has the 152mm derp, you hide. And of course the rear armor as well pretty much does what it says on the tin, nothing really to speak of. So, what is, excuse me, what can you do to actually use the armor of this vehicle effectively? Side scrape. Now, this I would say, this vehicle more than the T1 is the most perfect example of how to learn to side scrape. Because as you can see, if you get it wrong, this little target here will show up to your opponent and he can just shoot you if he knows an M6. However, if you hide that section of armor to your enemy, your armor values on your side armor almost go to almost instant ricochet, and the armor values on your spaced armor and armored treads, which normally from the side would be only 110, maybe 111, now go, if you angle it correctly, insta-bounce or extremely high value in penetration, which means that on occasion you will possibly be penned by a tier 8 tank, which has the very powerful gun, but at the same time, even tier 8 tanks will struggle to penetrate the front half, to penetrate your vehicle if you side scrape this thing effectively. This is a really useful feature, and I think this is what I think if you want to learn how to side scrape, this and a couple of other vehicles is a prime example of how to get it to work. And in fact, I'd say this is the better example because it's at a lower tier, so you can utilize your and also this section here is a perfect way to teach you how to do it effectively. For example, as you can see here, the armor value of 110 from complete side is now showing 261. That means a tier 10 tank would struggle to penetrate the side of this vehicle. So definitely for the tactics I would recommend for defending against shots of this vehicle, side scraping is the only real option you have, which once again kind of helps prove the case that this is a brawler. You just have to make sure that you don't, show too much of your very nasty flat side to your opponents, otherwise you're going to make yourself, well, pretty dead very quickly. Going on to shooting at this vehicle, well, there isn't really much I can say about shooting at this vehicle apart from the best place to shoot an M6 is at the side because it's such a humongous target. This section of the vehicle, naturally, with a little indent, is where the engine is. Nothing really else I can say about the M6. It's not really armored enough to really warrant where to shoot for weak points. I mean, obviously you want to shoot the guy in the track, so that way you have a much better chance to knock out your opponent, or to stop him from moving, so that way you can spend more time shooting at him. So yeah, a bad M6 driver will show you his sides a lot. So a good M6 driver will not. He'll know to not show you the sides because there's literally bugger all he can do about it. Actually, a new feature which I'm going to improvise as well is gun elevation and gun depression. We will go on to the gun, but beforehand, let's show you how high or low the gun can go. And the M6's gun elevation is absolutely brilliant. As you can see here, the Luftwaffe, if they decided to do a strafing run, they would not stand a chance. And the gun depression is also very impressive. Yeah, that's pretty much about the most you get. So that's very good gun depression. I'm estimating 10 degrees, I believe. Maybe a little more. 10 degrees of gun depression, which is absolutely fantastic. And it kind of adds that, and also it helps a lot when it comes to advancing up hills. So, that's all. With all that said, let's get back to the garage. Now, onto view range and signal range. Now, your view range is actually fairly decent for a tier 6 tank, 350 meters. It's not bad. It's quite an average sort of thing. Very good. Let's see how you compare against your tier 6 counterparts. Now, Les Français, they may not have the best hit points, but they certainly have decent view range. And how does the ARL respond to your 850? It responds 850, 350. It actually responds rather poorly, being 330. So there's all my false praises going to hell. What about Deutschland with the VK3601H? It is much better than you by 20. So yeah, 370. So that's better than you by 20, which is, so more better health than you, and better view range. Not looking good, is it? But still, not bad. The Churchill Mark 7. How does this tank fare? 360. So, weirdly enough, Germany seems to be on roll today. 360, only 10 better than you. And, of course, Russia. Now, as everyone knows, the Russian KV-1S has the worst, I would say, with regards to view range. Okay, never mind. It is worse. It's as bad as the ARL-44, which is quite poor, isn't it? What about the T150? T150 has 330, like its counterpart, and I'm going to assume the KV-2 suffers from the same. Yes, so the French, the Russians all suffer pretty poorly with view range. However, you do not. Although you're not on top of the king, well, you're not the king of the hill when it comes to view range, you're certainly not bad. And like I said, Joe average, not a bad sort of thing. It's not perfect. If you really want to improve it, then maybe giving a couple of your commanders crew skills or whatever. But, like I said, it works. For what you're going to use this thing for, the view range is more than adequate to be able to help you in combat. I wish I could say the same for the radio. I can't, I'm afraid. If you can see it in this very white garage, I'll do it like that. You only have 480. Oh dear. So, and that's your top radio, by the way. Yeah, it's not much of an improvement. So, unfortunately, with regards to radio, yeah, not too good at all. Once again, back to Les Français. And the ARL-44 has a tier 10 radio, which means it completely trumps you hard. That's the one thing the French seem to get back at us a lot. What about Deutschland? Well, the VK3601H has one of my favourite radio upgrades of all time, the FUG-12. As you can see, a fair amount of vehicles will have much better radios than you do, and as it has 710, beats you quite badly, but not as bad as the French. The Churchill Mark 7 has a tier 8 radio, which gives them 550 signal range, so much better than you. But, on the other hand, at least you're not Russian, because the KV-1S has 440 signal range, so you're not much better than them, which is not a very consoling thought. So the KV-1S and the T150, oops, wrong one, and the T150, same radio, 440. And, of course, the KV-2, same radio, 440. So, with regards to radio, you're crap. You are quite poor. Like, unfortunately, you're not even Joe Average. Even Joe Average would have a decent... I think Joe Average for this one will probably be the Churchill. So, yeah, you're below average. You're thankfully not super below average, but you're not really that good. So... that is kind of a crux to you, which probably means that if you are going to be working with someone, if you're in a platoon with someone and they're a medium tank and they go on the opposite side of the map, you'll probably have to stay in communication with them, or you may have to go with them if you really want to keep in contact for them. I mean, there's certainly skills which can help you improve it, but it's still quite a detrimental effect to your vehicle, so not too good there. Now, onto my favourite part of any review, the gun. Now, as for the shortcomings of this vehicle, the bad signal range, bad traverse, and terrible armor, you actually get a fairly decent gun, as compensation, I kind of feel. This thing, the 90mm M3, or, at least in my eye, an American version of an 88. 90mm gun. 7.89 rounds a minute, which with 100% crew, vents, and rammer, you're looking at about 5 to 6 second reload, maybe a little bit more. I don't think my crew are at 100. They are at 100%, aren't they? Yeah, they are. Yeah, roughly around that. So 5, around that. You have a very good 160 millimeters of worth of penetration, which is very good for a tier 6 tank. You're not too far off. The KV-1S is 175. The damage is pretty good, being at 240, certainly at respectable for a tier 6 tank. The only downsides I see of this gun is the 0.38 accuracy and a 2.3 second aiming time. As I've taken this thing off, without having the without either having the enhanced gun laying drive or without spending a few seconds worth, or at least a second worth of time aiming before you take a shot at medium to long range engagements, there is a high probability that your shell will go off into the distance, marry someone, and go to Brazil, which will serve you no purpose. So take care when shooting with this gun at longer distances. But like the stats of this vehicle with the high mobility, rather average view range and shite signal range, this gun is very much suited to brawling and certainly going to be certainly is useful when encountering vehicles with lighter armor. And if you can find those weak points as well, you can certainly, with the high rate of fire that you've got, make your opponents pay quite a fair bit in damage before they either realize you're shooting at them or before they die. Another useful feature of this gun, which I will say is very nice, is the fact that it's very much spread out in the sense of its usage. Not only does this thing go to the T29, because if you go to the research tree, it actually is a bonus research material. So yeah, like I said, not only does this gun go on the T29 when you start grinding through it, which I highly recommend, it also goes, if we go back a couple tanks, to the M4, and then to the EZ8, it also goes to the T20. As you can see, I've already researched it because it was on the M6. So all you need to do, if you are grinding through towards the T20, and also you have got the M6, is I'll only have to research the tracks, the turret, and the engine, as the gun is already there. And better still, it's on the Pershing as well, which means you won't have to suffer through these two guns before finally getting a fairly decent gun. All I have to do now, research the tracks. Will I even need to research? Will I even need to research it? I won't even need to research the turret. I can just get the gun, which will be super handy being at tier 8. So yeah, and it also, well, by that point you should have had this gun. It's also on the M46 pattern as well. So this gun is immensely useful in its variation and it being so far spread out, which for this vehicle, hang on, for this, let's go to here, which for the, well, at least for this tank, means that this thing is certainly nothing to be looked down upon. Only difficulty is with the accuracy. But apart from that, this gun is a very good gun. It's like the 88 of, I think I just said earlier, the 88 of America. Varied, spread out, but useful nonetheless. Now, on to equipment and crew skills. This is basically where I talk to you guys about what equipment and crew skills I would recommend to make your machine even more effective on the battlefield. So, the first two equipment skills, equipment modules, vents and rammer, no excuse. The third option is as always up to you, but here's what I would recommend. Number one would be an enhanced gun laying drive. That 2.3 second aiming time will be detrimental to your accuracy on the battlefield. So to be able to reduce it by any means is a good idea. But if you're not too fussed about having an enhanced gun laying drive, I would highly recommend you get the heavy spore liner. This adds 30% armor protection from ramming and explosions and 30% more protection to the crew from injuries. So if you feel that you are being rammed a lot, artied a lot, and your crew keeps dying, then it's certainly a good idea to get that as protection. The third option, if you are absolutely desperate, but I wouldn't recommend it, would be coated optics, but not binos. Certainly not binos, because that would imply that you would be camping, and this gun isn't designed for camping, however much I say it's an American 88. What I would recommend, I mean, I suppose if you were to get any kind of enhancements to your your view range would be your coated optics. This allows an extra 10% to your view range up to 500 meters, but there will be skills which you can train after you've trained the primary ones to help counteract this. But apart from that, really, number one recommendation, enhanced lane drive and heavy spore liner for the vehicle. That's pretty much what I would recommend for this vehicle, equipment-wise. Now, onto crew skills, and your crew skills over here. For some reason it does this glitch, I don't know why. For your commander, what I recommend, obviously, Sixth Sense. Now, to be able to get your commander to get Sixth Sense without any kind of frustration or gurs would be to train one skill up to 100%, and then train another skill to 40% upon completing the 100% of the first skill. This is to counteract the penalty that you receive by dropping your skills. And it just makes the whole process a lot less stressful, because unfortunately if you don't, you'll end up going back to 97% on Sixth Sense, and you'll just spend more time getting to it. I've made that mistake before. It's much easier just to do it that way, and actually quicker as well. Going to your Staff Sergeant, which is your gunner, because you actually have the miraculous position of 2 gunners. Now this is where it gets a little interesting, so pay attention. Your first gunner, we're going to call him Dave to make it a lot easier to understand. So Dave will only need to train up with Snapshot. This will improve your accuracy during your turret rotation, and it will help you on the battlefield when brawling. You want to train this to 100%, right? By which point then, when it gets to 100%, train into another skill, like repairs. Now once you have done this, Dave, or now his mate, which we'll call Frank will hopefully at this point be 100% with his own repair skill, by which point then you swap it out using the same process for Deadeye. With that done, Deadeye will basically increases the chance to cause damage to enemy vehicle modules and crew, and it is very much effective with AP, APCR, and heat shells. So if you've got a KV-2 with a 152mm derp, don't bother, try using another gun or another skill. So he'll have Deadeye, who can then start training on another skill, which will probably be Armorer. By which point, when Dave gets to 100% on his next skill, do the same process and drop the skill and get Designated Target. This basically makes the targeted vehicle of your opponent visible for an extra 2 more seconds, which can give you or your team the time to kill him. It's a little complicated, but basically what it serves to do is it just makes, getting your crew skills with regards to the offensive capabilities, you can get them faster, and it makes it a lot easier, and you don't have to train as long to get them. Going on to the driver, clutch braking, no arguments. That's 25 millimeters worth, that 25 degrees worth of traverse needs to be improved. So clutch braking is a must. The next skill, I would say, would be off-road driving. This basically increases your maneuverability and acceleration, which means that extra boom you get at the beginning of the battle will be even bigger boom, which could even save you from getting blown up. And also helps your turning as well. After which you probably want to go for Smooth Ride, as that also improves your accuracy on the move, and it makes shooting multiple targets on the move a lot easier. I mean, you could pick the Smooth Ride over the off-road driving if you are much more of a mobile vehicle, but as I'm more of a stationary shooter, I prefer just to have the ability of getting out of hell faster than I got into it. With preventative maintenance, however important it may be, I don't really feel I've been engine fired a lot to be able to warrant getting it, so I wouldn't worry about it. Your radio operator actually is a very useful person in this tank now, because he has this skill, signal boosting. This will extend the signal range, which means you will be able to improve that disastrously terrible 480 skill mate, which could eventually put you as good as Joe Average, which will be fantastic. After which you probably may want to train the skill situational awareness or repairs or whatever, but this skill is a #1 recommendation first. And finally, you want to get your loader, same process as before, Adrenaline Rush. This basically accelerates the gun loading if your vehicle has less than 10% of its hit point left. This could be a useful thing to be able to save your ass if the match is really not going your way and you're ending up having to fend for yourself whilst your opponents come in. So that will be certainly a useful skill to have. After which, probably save stowage, but really this is the one you're going to train for the most with this vehicle. So, that's about it for the talking side of this review. Let's get into some action and gameplays just to see how this thing does in the actual game. So, here we are on Live Oaks. This is a quick replay, just to show you the good sides of the side scraping capability. This game wasn't exactly spectacular in the sense of what I do, but this is more of just a highlight to a degree of how useful the armor of this thing can be. So it's a tier 6 game on Live Oaks. I'm part of the top tiering vehicle. I have a Churchill Mark 7 to my right, and I am one of the only tier 6. Yes, I'm one of 2 tier 6 heavies. Everyone else in our team that's tier 6 is either a tank destroyer or a medium tank. The AMX-40 highlights a very important issue of the fact that not many of our allies were pushing down south, which at first I was kind of concerned of, but I thought, well, I'm not really, as I'm top tier, I have to go into the town. So as you can see, I failed to make any kind of mark on the ground. And as you can see, the acceleration factor of the M6 really helps it get across these little hill and ridges like that. So I move into position, being very aggressive. Take my time. I pop a shot. Don't penetrate, but don't penetrate, but do no damage. Enemy combinator. I only track him. I don't know why I didn't do any more, but I rammed the bastard, and the VK steals the kill. I aim. I shoot and gets a nice damage roll, low, but you know, damage roll into the side. And at this point, our T-34 is about to get him, and the Panzer III-4 has him as well. I was a little bit overconfident pushing my entire side out. I highly recommend you don't do this. But I was very conscious of the fact that there was no one down south. So I thought, well, if we can push, we'll push. So I pushed that way. And here, right. KV-1S, he shoots me and gets a nice shot into the side there, as you can see on my bit there. And I spot the enemy tank. I fire, taking advantage of it. And as you can see there, really slow reverse, so if you can, avoid that as much as possible. Right, so KV-1S sighted. Try and get a cheeky shot into its top turret, but Su-100 moving up. Both of these tanks can kill me within 1 or 2 shots. Right, so here what I'm doing now, side scraping. Taking care not to show the side of this part of my vehicle. Trying also not to show my turret front, because unfortunately they can still penetrate it. Just egging them on, try and get a shot. KV-1S shoots. He fires. I gotta hide that section there. Hide. Right. Zoom out a bit. You saw that on the side, I just bounced pretty much a few meters away, or a few feet away from where I actually got shot. I bounced with 44mm worth of armor, a KV-1S shot which has 175 mils of penetration. He has the top gun. But because I angled and didn't show this section of my armor, I was able to bounce that. And so, Su-100 does it, shoots, tracks eat it. I aim, I hit that guy, another bounce. Taking my time. KV-1S shoots that guy, I kill his mate. Now, I took a bit of a big risk here because I could have easily lost out. He could have reloaded, but luckily, that fast rate of fire was able to help me get that kill. So I survived a number of kills. I survived a number of shots from a fully upgraded KV-1S and a somewhat upgraded Su-100. So like I said, nothing really much happens in this game because the entire enemy team, very miraculously, pushed into the north half of the map, which meant that the guys down here, which I think was an AMX-40 as well. Oh no, he actually died. He actually did something. Rarity that happens. Most of our team down south don't really do anything, and that's pretty much all the actions that I have. I think the rest of the enemy team just bugger off down south. There's the T-49, and the VK3001H would have followed, came down here and ended up getting killed, but I unfortunately couldn't see and get the kill. So anyway, I will take you now to a live play of the M6, which hopefully will win. And we're back, and we are in Swamp, which actually is an alright map for me. I'm not too fussed about it, but we are in an exceptionally bad matchmaking. So yeah, I ain't doing much. ISU 152 stock though, because he's got the 152mm derp. I'm not entirely sure if we're going to win this or if I'm going to die, but whatever. We will do what we can to save the game. A lot of our tanks are going, all the tier tank. I'll try. I'll try. To be honest with you, I highly doubt I'll do much in this game. But if we can do something, it kind of proves the point. I just got to get my tactical cap on, because all of you guys... Really? I'm a tier 6 tank and I have more balls than you. This is embarrassing. Of course, this means that our guns... So yeah, I've got to have to be exceptionally careful because they are all camping. Yep, this game's almost somewhat doomed. Right, take your time. Just dodged. Yeah, I realised that, but how many of your other tanks will actually do that? Right, I'll have to back off now completely. There is no way. Right, reversing skills, not to the best. Unfortunately now. Oh, I'm being blessed with a hill. Be very careful, Crap Hunter, as I've often been caught in this kind of nightmare before. Fuck that, I am pulling back. Hopefully the other guns will pull them away, but unfortunately, as I am tier 6, the greed of tier 6 will hit them very fast. So I miraculously survive being killed. That is a miracle. I honestly thought I was going to die there. So we've taken out one of their tanks. Gewehrpanzer just took out a Tiger 2. And my sympathies for the people on the right-hand side are completely gone. We have an AFK IS tank, which is not good. Right, an STA finally grows a pair of balls and decides to engage, so I will do what I can to support. T-34 gets a nasty shot into him, which reduces him down to 264 hit points. So he's a one-shot. Oh, no, and he's gone. T-34 is completely kaputt, to quote a certain famous German officer. Statue of Liberty is kaputt. The STA is moving into position to try and take him out. I can't really do much to support said STA except follow him. But, oh, no, he's taken a shot and he's taken a punt. STA takes a nasty hit. Somehow, one of our heavy tanks has pushed all the way into the enemy base and is now wreaking havoc on our opponent's artillery. This is a rare occurrence. I can't believe it. I wish I had a... Oh, scumbag just went for him. Centurion is starting to push up to go support the T-34-85. It's getting very lively now. As the Centurion decides to go YOLO, all of the enemy heavy tanks are camping. I am taking cover. Screw you who just shot at me. Blah! Right, our heavy tanks, medium tanks are starting to grow a pair of balls. Our heavy tanks are moving up. We've got a glorious sign. Our heavy tank, whoever got it, IS-3, you freaking legend. Why are you taking so long to shoot? Right, Tiger 1 has just been knocked out. I'm going to back away. STA is going to go from that T-34 will go for me. Only got his track shot out. Oops, I'm going to back off because that guy probably doesn't need me rubbing into his left. Jagdpanzer is not paying attention to the minimap, otherwise he would have seen that the Hellcat, who was waiting there, has now just killed him. Take your time, take your time. I will do some damage in this game if it will be the end of me. Schütze! Bang! Right, done some damage. Friendly fire, that's just what you need, eh? T-34, blundering into the game. T-34-85, we got a side scrape. Makes the T-34's job a lot harder, though unfortunately we've completely lost this flank. I've got to be extremely careful because if I don't, I could die. Oh, I can go for a kill shot. Ninja! And I'm dead. I'm dead. Too much. Come on. Bollocks. Unfortunately, this game was lost. The IS-3 didn't do it. I unfortunately got tracked and got tracked at the wrong moment. Our IS was completely AFK. So unfortunately, you know, bit too aggressive, got killed. Not really happy with how this fucking team worked, though. I mean, half the team... Oh, that's why. IS and he's... Oh, boy. Right, inaction, bot. I do wonder how people can create accounts like that, which then doesn't work. Unfortunately, this game is looking like a bit of a fail on our part, which is a bit of a shame because it was actually looking very good. I am very sorry, IS3, that we weren't able to take advantage of advancing. But anyway, so unfortunately, yeah, that looks a bit like a defeat. So anyway, I will see you guys back in the garage. So, unfortunately, that was a defeat. Unfortunately, we couldn't actually get to do much. Got caught out, and unfortunately didn't have a repair kit when you needed it. Anyway, so, one victory, one loss is not so bad, but it can be better. But anyway, summary time. The M6. This vehicle, like its Tier 5 predecessor, is no change, really, with regards to tactics, and, well, I suppose it's more of an improvement. It's a bit like another upgrade, and whereas... to a certain extent, you'd kind of want something completely different for Tier 6, a bit like the transition from KV-1, very slow, but well, very slow, armored, but, and has a very decent gun, to fast, mobile, and Jesus Christ, it's got a fantastic gun. It's a bit... This vehicle tends to be overshadowed by many other of its Tier 6 counterparts, but it's no less useful. It still has the capabilities to turn the tide of battle whenever needed, and especially when it comes to working with friends in platoons, it certainly will be useful upon when it comes to working together to defeat multiple opponents. So, this thing... I would highly recommend you go up here, especially if you're wanting to go up the American Heavy line. Much more important to go up this vehicle than to go up the Jumbo, because unfortunately if you went up the Jumbo, you will not receive the 90mm gun that you would receive on the T29 and also the T20. So, yeah, go the M6. It makes grinding this vehicle and this vehicle so much easier. So that's about it for this one, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this kind of content, do feel free to let me know by typing in the comments section down below, clicking on the like button, and of course subscribing to the channel. If you yourself are a YouTuber who plays World of Tanks, or a gamer who plays World of Tanks, either way, feel free to let me know if there's any kind of things I can improve gameplay wise, preferably not charge into the fray and take out a tier 8 tank and get shot up. Anything, like commentary-wise, talking too much here, not enough there, whatever really, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching, guys. This is Crap Hunter signing out, and I'll catch you next time.